enterprise and employment through partnerships and collaboration with the community. And it generates revenue that further support conservation, science, and resource management. How can we tap this opportunity? With careful planning and coordination of operations, marketing, and community. By following best practices for resource protection in order to avoid impacts. Using qualified guides as stewards and educators. And building a collaborative reservations website featuring certified eco-tours. We build a local Southwest Florida brand for ecotourism through the web and social media, and importantly, word of mouth. And we also network globally with outbound tour operators and travel agents. To engage the community, we look for collaboration, engaging our local green business partners, guides, outfitters, hotels, transportation, and local food vendors. But how is all this going to come together? We believe the Science and Environment Council is a natural organizing hub for ecotourism in Southwest Florida. The SEC is a collaboration of 27 leading science-based environmental nonprofits and government organizations in Sarasota and Manatee counties. Our members own or manage over 100,000 acres of natural lands. They operate more than a dozen science and education facilities with hundreds of professional scientists and educators on staff. The SEC intends to leverage the natural, human, and capital resources of our members, plus our local green business partners, to develop a collaborative, nonprofit, business, marketing, and learning platform for sustainable ecotourism. We will offer unique eco-tours that deliver exciting and educational experiences, providing unparalleled and responsible access to the Gulf Coast's unique places. Through the ecotour experience, locals and visitors will gain greater appreciation for conserving and protecting our natural lands, waters, and cultural heritage. And the benefits will also ripple through the community as a sustainable economic development opportunity, raising the level of service, knowledge, and quality of the experience for everyone involved, and strengthening local environmental stewardship. I look forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. And I think as Dr. Schaefer has shown, there's many ways, there's many economic opportunities that go hand in glove and are completely compatible with long-term sustainable use of our natural resources. And what we're going to hear about now is yet another one of those opportunities, and that opportunity is in green building and the green economy. Our fifth and final panelist, Tony Stephan, is the director of the Myakka River branch for the U.S. Green Building Council. So, Mr. Stephan.
Good morning. Thank you for that nice introduction, Dr. Crosby. I've gone through the Small Island Developing States report, and I've identified 5 issues that I see as most relevant to Sarasota County's built environment. Among the 5 issues, I'm recognizing some practices that we're doing well already, 2 areas where we can make improvements, and then finally 1 item that I think we'll be doing very well very soon. Transforming human capabilities. This is really all about building human capital, something we've done really well with so far. So I'll give you some examples. We have significant institutional investment through the hiring and retention of energy and sustainability managers at the Sarasota County government, the University of South Florida campus, and the Sarasota County School District. The school district alone has 4 staff members dedicated to energy management and sustainability. We have a great deal of expertise within our community of building and lead professionals like Carlson Studio and 2 Trails, and the work they're doing in partnership with local business leaders like Willis Smith Construction, Mercedes-Benz, and the cancer support community have helped make Sarasota County 3rd in Florida on a per capita basis in LEED certified projects. Finally, we're preparing emerging professionals through the Bachelor of Science degree in Alternative and Renewable Energy Management at Everglades University, as well as sustainability curricula at Ringling College and at USF. Coastal ecosystems, addressing increasing pressures through regional governments. This is also something we're doing pretty well with. In Sarasota County, we've already been cooperating on a regional scale to improve our natural environment. For example, we manage the impacts of stormwater through our water management districts for new development projects. You've all seen the water retention ponds in new commercial and residential developments. Those water retention ponds help maintain the health of our local bays and estuaries. We have Sarasota County's new low impact development technical manual called the LID manual, and the county is currently planning amendments to the land development regulations to accommodate owners that want to pursue LEED practices on their projects. We've continued to fund our environmentally sensitive lands protection program to purchase and preserve wildlife habitat and corridors. Finally, we have ongoing projects by organizations like the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program and the Sarasota Bay Guardians, who host work days to maintain and improve our shoreline, mangrove, and estuary habitats. So here's something we can improve on: concurrency. You're probably wondering what concurrency is. Concurrency is how we manage pressures from new developments on our county roads, utilities, emergency services, and schools, so that we can have some assurances that when we issue a permit for a new development, that the county services are going to be able to provide the capacity to keep up with it. For example, if we have a new neighborhood of 5,000 homes going in south of University Parkway, concurrency is how we make sure that our roads can handle all the new cars that are going to come with it, and that our schools are going to be able to handle all the new students. Concurrency is all about capacity. So the question here is, can we expand concurrency to extend beyond county infrastructure and utilities to include the capacity of our natural environment? Can concurrency include an accounting for ecosystem services like pollution uptake capacity for fertilizers and carbon dioxide? What if we create an inventory of the total potential capacity of our land and marine ecosystems to absorb the impacts from our built environment? And in turn, can we use that inventory that we develop to evaluate whether our natural systems have the capacity to absorb the impacts of new development? Boosting urban sustainability and resilience. This is another area we can improve on. We've seen the City of Sarasota's 2020 plan, the county's 2050 plan, upcoming form-based codes for the downtown area. All of these demonstrate a commitment to higher density development and mixed-use zoning. But beyond the commercial appeal and marketability that these newer land uses promote, where the environment is concerned, higher density and mixed-use development are integral to reducing reliance on automobile transportation. One of the promises of increased density is the viability of pedestrian, bicycle, and public transportation systems, all of which can substantially decrease energy use and air pollution. So I think our local development interests could get together with our local environmental interests and ask themselves a really timely question. Can we offer an independent, car-free retirement lifestyle in Sarasota? My time's wrapping up. My last slide is renewable energy systems. This is Mote here. I'm not sure which building this is. Maybe Dr. Crosby can clarify. Photovoltaic energy is something that I think we'll be doing really well really soon. Nationally, the first quarter of 2014 showed an increase of 79% over the first quarter of 2013 in new photovoltaic systems installed. Experienced local PV installers like Region Solar and Brilliant Harvest, they'll tell you that they're busier than they've ever been. And the reason for that is what we're seeing is the upfront cost of investment is going down and the rates of return are going up, making PV a very attractive investment. With the current federal tax incentives that are in place, residential installations are providing 8 to 12% typical returns right now. These are secure, reliable returns for a 20 to 30 year period. Imagine if the retirees in Sarasota decided to diversify their portfolios with secure, high-yield investment of a home PV system. I think all of that could lead us toward a tipping point, the massive conversion of our electrical infrastructure to decentralized renewable photovoltaic systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. That was a marvelous wrap-up, if you will, summarizing a lot of the opportunities that we have and a lot of the accomplishments that have already been made here. And clearly, a number of these challenges and opportunities that we heard of with regard to the Small Island Developing States report are mirrored right here in our local community. And Sarasota is indeed leading the way in so many different issues related to sustaining the use of our environment for the long term. And this is something that Mote is very, very proud to be part of. In our 60-year history, we've always been focused on conducting the best science to help promote wise management of our natural resources, helping to transfer and translate that information as we've done here. I think this panel is a great example of the translation and transfer of science and technology into impact here in our local community, and it has impact around the world. So it's time now, I think, to move into a question and answer period. And what I would suggest is, if you have any questions that are written on your cards, raise them up in the air, and Vanna will be walking around to pick up the cards. Vanna's not here today. Now, our question and answer period is going to last until noon, so we've got about 23 and a half minutes for that. But when we're done, please don't forget, as you're walking out, if you haven't already picked up your Mote tote bag. Those of you that registered for this forum will have a Mote tote bag out there that's got a little more information about the presentations you've heard today. Some of the contact information for these folks, because we're not going to have time to get through all the questions, but you can surely follow up with any of our panelists on any of these questions. And there's also, for those of you that like a bargain, there's also a $5 off coupon for you all to go visit Mote Aquarium Good Today. So go on over there and see. That aquarium we really view as an informal science education center. We want you to have fun there, leave there with a smile on your face, but also leave with a greater level of ocean literacy, if you will, about some of the issues that we've heard today. So, someone here has writing almost as bad as mine. Let's see, the question is, what measures are you handling to increase the energy efficiency in buildings here in Sarasota? This is for Tony. And you want to add anything from what you were already talking about, Tony?
So there are
You want to come up here to the podium?
So what are some of the factors that are driving the increases in energy efficiency in buildings in Sarasota? Okay, there are a pair of factors. There's what is required of you when you build a project, and then there's what you voluntarily choose to take on. So what's happened in Florida through the Florida Building Code, we have a whole chapter dedicated to energy efficiency. And every 3 years during a new code cycle, the energy efficiency requirements for new buildings gets more and more stringent. So that's one of the factors requiring increased energy efficiency. On the consumer side, let's say you have your home, and you want to pursue energy efficiency, you have that as something that you're free to pursue if you want to pursue it. So a variety of things are available to the homeowner. A big one in Florida is windows. Windows bring sunlight into your home. Obviously, we love them for our views, but there's a lot of heat that comes with it, so your air conditioner's fighting with it. Improved efficiency windows are a great investment. Higher efficiency air conditioning systems. If your air conditioner is 12, 15 years old, look at a much higher efficiency unit. It can make a substantial difference. Energy Star appliances. The list goes on, but I hope that gives you at least some sense of what some of the factors are in energy efficiency in a house.
Good, thanks. And I love the fact that our marine mammal building is still up there with our sustainable energy efforts showing on it. That's great. This question is from the web. How can we build community awareness of sea level rise as a local threat? It seems like this is potentially a significant issue, but many people who live along the coast still don't know about it. Barbara?
Should we put the mic over here and then you can just, if it works?
No, you need.
They won't be able to see you.
So you have to stand up. Over here. Come on, Barbara. There you go.
Good question. There are two, I'm going to use sort of two ways again, as Tony just did. First of all, we already are starting to do this with some of the local community organizations. I have colleagues that are invited to organizations to their various luncheons and group meetings to talk about climate change and sea level rise. Some of these folks are citizen scientists really, but they're using the best available scientific charts from government agencies and local projections. That is something that actually has been going on, I would say, for the last 7 or 8 years. But it's just at the community level. It's a very informal, sort of voluntary, we want to know about this approach. What I think needs to happen is, and I think what is helpful in our efforts is what we're learning from other communities that are getting much more structurally and systematically involved. They are forming more formal institutional processes where you can have a local city or county or state process that is supported by the elected officials, by the policymakers, that is an endorsement of an approach to begin to move forward in exchanging knowledge, understanding the science, and looking at the local risks and vulnerabilities that we have. Looking at timeframes, what we should be thinking about now, what we can wait until later, what the costs are involved. This is why I've put in my slide, I think it's time that we think about some kind of a formal sea level rise structure that would be endorsed by the county. I think ideally we would have it with Manatee County, because we have a Sarasota Bay, a regional economy and ecology in common. And I think we have to keep putting more emphasis in this kind of networking and encouraging our leaders to step forward. Many individual ideas, but I don't want to take too long. And many studies.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, next question. Is the availability and sustainability of drinking water a concern for the small island developing states?
I can make this a very short answer, yes. Saltwater intrusion, big issue. There is work being done to promote the use of rain barrels. There is, again, we get back to just keeping healthy coastal ecosystems, very key to water quality. So yes, big issue, and I probably should have mentioned it in my presentation. It's a very big issue.
Thank you very much, Director. We have got so many great questions here. This is fantastic. Unfortunately, there's no way we're going to be able to get through them all, but we'll give a shot here. I'm just sort of picking a few out here and there, trying to have a little bit of diversity. Sarah, this next one is for you. There's actually a couple of them that are sort of along the same way, the same theme. Who recommended the study on Sarasota Bay's value? Why is it important? And who will be using the results of the study? And for what purpose? So I've got about 4 different questions.
Great, thank you. So the first question of who recommended the economic value study for Sarasota Bay, that actually came from our Citizens Advisory Committee. Raise your hands. We have a few people here, 28, Damon, hey, on our Citizens Advisory Committee. And they wanted to do the study to look at the values of different resources in Sarasota Bay. And it basically started to look at natural capital. And before the Deepwater Horizon oil spill happened,
there was talk about doing oil drilling off the coast of Florida within 3 miles off the coast. So that's kind of how the discussion started. Let's look at the values, and other national estuary programs have done similar studies to allow policymakers and managers to look at these resources, how valuable they are when they're making decisions for development, or to protect the resources, or to manage the resources in the budgets properly. So I think that kind of answers it. Just to be brief and let some other questions go forward.
Okay, I have a feeling this one is for Tony. How does Florida, the Sunshine State, compare with other states in solar PV installation?
That's a timely question. I just happened, as part of my section on photovoltaic energy, I did a little research. And so the Solar Energy Installers Association actually provides this data comparing all 50 states. And California is just far and away ahead of all of the other states. And it's not necessarily because it's sunnier, it's because they have the right mix of market incentives and benefits for people who want to pursue it, not only as homeowners, but as a private utility. Florida is about 15th on the list, and we're behind states like New Jersey, places you'd normally associate with being cloudier. But our sunshine is good here, but for purposes of performance of the photovoltaic panels, it's really the environment of incentives that are driving our placement as the Sunshine State at 15.
Does Florida have a renewable portfolio?
I would need to do some research and see if Florida has an aggressive renewable portfolio standard.
California has a renewable.
Okay, next question. I think a number of folks on the panel could take a swipe at, and it's a good one. They're all good. How do we begin to build government collaboration to make solid plans for adapting to 1 to 4 feet of sea level rise? We have the tools, but our elected leaders seem ambivalent or fearful. So the last part probably wasn't a question, but a comment. But the question remains is, how do we begin to build government collaboration to develop those solid plans, to implement plans? So, any takers? Any takers?
I can speak. I'm on a county advisory committee, and an item that was on the agenda recently had to do with planning for redevelopment after a disaster, post-disaster redevelopment. It is an effort. I don't know. To be honest with you, I can't tell you if that is headed by a county office. I'm under the impression it is. But and I think it got tabled for a while, but now it's being reinvigorated, and so the county is currently really looking at developing a plan. So, thanks.
All right. This one sounds like it's probably for Jennifer, I think. The ecotourism model sounds cool. How can the community get involved?
Well, as I described, the Science and Environment Council has many professional scientists and educators on staff. But to pull off sort of a coup of this whole industry, we're going to require lots and lots of support from the community in the form of vendors who can provide all of the particular services for leading the tours, for outfitting the tours with bicycles or boats, etc. Transportation folks who can provide carbon-free transportation, food providers who have access to locally sourced food. So we want to look out to the community, to our green business partners, large green business hotel, green hotels, marinas, etc., to really put together elements of tours that can be as sustainable as possible. So to answer the question, if you have an interest in providing and participating, contact me. We're in the very early stages of getting organized, and so we'll be looking out to the community to find our green partners.
Good. Okay, it's an interesting question. I'm just going to try your physics skills here, I believe, Director. If water seeks its own level, how sustainable is the differential in sea level rise between the Western Pacific and the world sea levels? It's a comment.
Let me start out by saying that I am one of those people that never took physics. Not high school physics, not college physics, no interest in physics. So I can't answer it, but I think that Dr. Crosby can, because he
My training was in physiological ecology. However, I'll take a stab at this because it's a reasonable question to ask when you hear that sea level rise is differential in different areas of the world. So how can that be if, in fact, as this questioner correctly points out, water sort of seeks its own level and a balance. And I would suspect, and there may be some physical oceanographers in the crowd who might help me on this one, but I would suspect it's a combination of factors, not the least of which is as sea level rises, because either the temperature goes up, and when temperature goes up, water expands, right? Molecules expand. That's one piece of it. But there's also water that's being added from melting ice that also increases sea level rise. And as the total volume of water increases, remember, water has pressure itself. And if any of you are divers, you know when you dive, your ears start to pop and there's more and more pressure the deeper you go. That water, the more water that's in the ocean, there'll actually be compression. So some of these models have to take into effect that you're not just pouring water into a finite bowl, but you're also having to take into account the additional pressure. So there's compacting of water as well that builds into the model. And on top of it, there is also geological activity going on with the land that is subsidence of the land and movement of the land. And we all live here on a barrier island, and you know that there's movement of land. We all are experienced with movement of land here. And I suspect, and the other variable I forgot to mention is gravity. Keep in mind that the moon does have an influence on tides and sea level as well. So if you take all of those variables and add them all together, I suspect that may be one reason why we are temporarily seeing differences in absolute sea level rise at different tide stations. That's my best stab. Okay, we've got 6 more minutes, and boy, do we have a lot of geological. Let's see. This is an interesting one as well, and it's either, I suppose, for Barbara or Tricia, one of the two of you, but any of you can chime in if you like. It's an interesting, they're all interesting. I realize it is vital to have a plan to respond to the effects of climate change. However, what is being done to curb industrial abuse of the environment? I've noticed many tactics aimed at citizens to reduce our impact, but industry is responsible for the majority of environmental degradation. So there was an observation there made, a personal observation made, and a question. So would the two of you like to take a stab at that?
I'm just going to give some comments.
This is a really big question, lot of different industries are involved that are bundled together. Every industry is going to have its own set of standards. Some are self-imposed, like what Tony was saying, and some are by government regulation. And if they're government regulation, it's usually under a pollution control issue or a health issue. All right, so it's clean air, we want clean air, or we want clean water. There are regulations that are beginning to deal more with the atmospheric pollutants and how they're affecting our air, our own health. These are very industry specific, and the industries involved have a tremendous amount of opportunity to have input, not only in designing standards, but also in reviewing standards. So there is a sense of give and take. In part, the market is involved. When health issues get too severe, then there's a balance, there's a cost-benefit analysis there. And that's just the way our society works through decision-making. So eventually, our communities are, maybe our standards are higher or our industry standards are changed so that we're basically protected. And as a democracy, we all, in principle, need to participate in these issues and be part of the process in order to make sure our interests, as well as the industrial interests, are covered. And it's just a process answer, I think, that I can give you.
Barbara, I think those were very apt observations. From a global perspective, of course, the United Nations has been working on the issue of climate change for decades now, and continues to. There will be a Secretary General's conference this fall. He's convening the nations of the world to again talk about climate change and pressing ahead. We're, as a United Nations, working on new, what they call sustainable development goals for a post-2015 sustainable development agenda. And again, I think climate will be part of that. In terms of going industry by industry, you know, there's specific work being done on measures that can be taken by various industries to reduce their carbon footprint. But it is, function largely of local government, state government, national governments to step up and address the issue. So there is a global framework that continues to be worked on, and I guess I just wanted to chime in with that perspective as well.
Okay. Well, you should have probably stayed up here because the next one is pretty good too. Can you explain how the concept of sustainability will be applied by the UN on a worldwide basis?
Piece of cake. It's a pretty broad question. It has an answer that could probably we could probably do a few days on that at least. There are multiple programs within the United Nations where we have people doing research, analysis, economists, policymakers. You know, it's quite an organization in terms of defining the agenda, identifying targets of opportunity. But, you know, sustainability, green economy, the linkage between environment and poverty eradication, all of those, fit together. And the United Nations is going to be working very hard, as I said, to articulate sustainable development goals. You might look online if you'd like. There are Millennium Goals that have been in place and will extend through 2015. Very interesting Millennium Development Goals that were put in place by the United Nations in 2000. And the next round of what these goals are is being articulated now, and the sustainability agenda is going to be a big part of that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's no way we're going to be able to get through all of these. I want to ask you all to give a round of applause to our panel.